Nancy to get going.
All right, we don't have any gavel. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. This is the May 28th meeting of the Plan Commission in Middleton. Can we start with the roll call?
Adams.
Here.
Bruce.
Here.
Harp.
Here.
Summers. Here. And Hanairo is chairing this evening and is present. Sonnentag and Paulson are absent and excused.
Okay, great. The first item of business is, it's after 7 p.m. So we have a hearing for the purpose of rezoning, request for rezoning from mixed use urban to planned unit development, general development plan for the Greenway mixed use development at 8309 Greenway Boulevard. Hearing is now open. Is anybody wishing to make a comment? Either in person or online? Last call for comments.
And I'll simply say we did not receive any statements prior to the meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, hearing no comments, seeing no hands raised online, that hearing is now closed at 7:01. All right, the next hearing, also it's after 7, so starting at 7:01, we'll open the hearing to related to the request to amend general development plan for the Conservancy Bend residences at 2341 through 2439 Parmenter Street and 2420 through 2446 Clark Street. Do we have anybody wishing to make a public comment? And Mark, did you get any written comments? Okay. All right, last call for comments. Seeing no one ready to make a comment, it is 7:02 and we will close that hearing. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the Plan Commission's May 14th, 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any corrections or comments on the minutes? I had just one item, and that is on page 7 of the packet. With reference to the manufactured housing, I had asked the staff to have the Wisconsin Housing Alliance, the speaker that spoke at the Workforce Housing Committee. I specifically referred to them reviewing the code. I know the staff reviews the zoning code all the time, so I just would like that to be shown that I was referring to Wisconsin Housing Alliance.
Where specifically?
It's on, if you scroll down, that the language pertaining to modular and manufactured homes. See that? I would just add, Hanairo asked staff to have the Wisconsin Housing Alliance review, or suggested that the staff have them review it, because that came up at our meeting with the Workforce Housing Committee.
Suggested that staff have the Wisconsin Housing Alliance. Okay.
Yep. They're the Manufactured Housing Association. Okay. Any other changes? Hearing none with those corrections, the minutes are accepted. Moving on to our agenda items. The first one is the zoning map amendment from mixed use urban to planned unit development, general development plan for the Greenway mixed use development at 8309 Greenway Boulevard. And the recommendation from staff is that the Common Council, do we have the recommendation showing? Adopt an ordinance zoning the property as a PUD. Mark, do you want to give us your
Sure.
update on this?
Thank you, Alder Hanairo. We have 2 rezoning applications. One of them is a GIP amendment, GDP amendment before you tonight. And I wanted to start by saying our ordinance, our new zoning ordinance, has new procedures for adopting zoning map amendments. And I wanted to supplement the staff report for both items, starting with this one. It's also my understanding that there's some interest potentially at the council level, and maybe Alder Hanairo, you wanted to address that, but I'll just simply say there's some interest in further reviewing our procedures going forward. But right now, at this point, absent any new procedures, I wanted to provide this recommendation as well as that you have before you, as well as I distributed the staff evaluation of the criteria for approval pertaining to this project. These are the 10 items that are found in our zoning ordinance, section 10.10.45 3E. And this was my attempt at addressing those factors that are to be considered as criteria for approval. I apologize that it wasn't in the packet. If you'd like, we have it on the screen. We can quickly go through it. But that's all I have is supplementing my staff report.
Okay. And to explain the reference Mark made to the council, maybe further reviewing procedures going forward. One of the things that Alder Schaefer, who used to be on Plan Commission, and I have asked to be on the agenda for tomorrow's committee, the whole meeting, is establishing some sort of policy so that we don't schedule hearings and actions, votes at the same meeting. Because in the interest of openness and transparency, we want to make sure that the public is aware that we will give consideration to what we're hearing during the public comments that come up at the hearings. And to have the vote scheduled at the same time as the hearing sort of creates the impression that we aren't going to make any changes, because it's hard to do that on the fly. So we'll be talking about it tomorrow, but for the two items on tonight's agenda, we had no public comments, and we don't have a policy yet. So that's why we're considering these tonight. And this would not just be for Plan Commission, it would be for council meetings and other, I think it maybe was prompted by the Landmarks Commission recent actions. Okay, so is there a motion? Mark, members, do you want to walk through the 10 items that Mark is showing us or was showing us, the criteria?
I'm
You're
comfortable just
comfortable?
having, I think his report's pretty self-explanatory. I did want to, I was interested in what the difference is between the MUU and that required, or what factors triggered the requirement for the PUD. And I see that it is the setbacks. Is that?
Go to number 9 specifically.
Yeah.
Scrolling down to 9, Daphne, please. So once I was becoming more familiar with this project, I will confess to not fully grasping all the details of the project last year. So I'll take responsibility for the oversight when I was the one who recommended that, here's an opportunity to do mixed use urban zoning. And as the zoning ordinance text and evolved, and as we got this project off the back burner, because last year they decided to put it on hold and now they were coming back with it. We had our new zoning ordinance and map in place, and I looked at the requirements to see if it was complete, and I realized, the setbacks don't comply with MUU. So it's primarily the setback is the issue. And
yeah, what makes me, what my question is maybe we should consider this as something to amend in our ordinance, because
that was my first reaction as well. It's like,
Yeah.
well, why did that happen?
yeah,
We do have the downtown zoning classification that allows the relaxed or the lack of setbacks. I can't remember all the standards off the top of my head, but the difference is this is a taller building. So than what we would allow downtown.
Right.
But it at the same time seems entirely appropriate with what we've been wanting to see happen in the Greenway Station area.
Yeah.
So rather than, so I contacted the developer and their representative is here tonight, Abby, and let them know that the city would take on the responsibility to apply for and make the arrangements for the rezoning, since this was our error.
Yeah. As you move forward with your potential amendments to the zoning ordinance, maybe we consider some revisions here. I don't know if a 0 setback would be appropriate in MUU or not, but it's 20 feet. I understand why we did it, and at the time I remember thinking about it and it made sense, but maybe we need to reconsider that a little bit.
Great points.
Otherwise, I was supportive of the project before, and I'm supportive of it right now.
There's no material changes from what I understand, Abby. There's no material changes from what was approved by the council through the GIP process last July. We are in the process of reviewing the SIP submittal now, and that's going to come before you on June 11th. So that's why we wanted to get this out of the way so that it's, instead of reviewing it as a site plan review against the MUU zoning district, because it doesn't comply, we had to go through the PUD process again.
Okay. When we do consider the SIP, I just would be interested in how the parking is being managed, you know.
How the what?
How the parking is going to be managed in terms of the residential versus commercial and signage and so forth.
Those details, there are quite a few details in the SIP. I haven't read every word of it yet, but I think that sort of thing is addressed in there. And Abby is nodding.
And Mark, for clarification, the reason, because when I first was reading this, I thought, well, why don't we just amend the approval of the SIP to take out the contingency about supporting the designation of mixed use urban? But then I saw the wording said at the time the city adopts its new zoning map. So it's already in there instead of
We've already-
after the city adopts its new.
Correct. We've already, the zoning today on our zoning map
It shows it.
MUU.
Are there other situations where we've specified at the time it's approved instead of after?
Yes, I thought you were going to ask a different question.
Oh,
We, I think, did this in 3 cases. The other 2,
one was Red Tail Ridge, wasn't it?
Middleton
yes,
Shores.
and Middleton
apartment.
Shores specifically, but those do comply with the new
Okay.
zoning classifications.
Okay.
That's the question I thought you were going to
It's,
ask. But yeah, we
it's
did-
something to think about in the future for the wording, because if we say we will do it after the city adopts the new zoning map, that would take some sort of action on the city's part. And then if we discover, because you know, you're so busy with the rest of the voluminous zoning code, having to go check this particular situation to make sure it was going to comply with the.
What we would have
MUU.
had to do otherwise is go through the rezoning process to go from PDD, since it was zoned PDD, that would have automatically translated to
PUD.
And we thought, well, here we have a willing
Hmm.
developer to just take care of this now when we adopt the new zoning map. And at the time, our city attorney was supportive of it. We now have some different guidance, if you will. But the fact is, we are where we are, and this was the only way to fix it.
Yep. Okay, so who would like to make the motion that is showing on the screen here?
I'll take a stab at it. I'll make a motion to recommend that the council adopt an ordinance zoning the property planned unit development, general development plan, and to recommend that the council approve the general development plan with the contingencies approved by the council on July 18th, 2023. And as listed in the staff report.
And if you could add one word, I'm sorry, I just realized I should have, that implies that it's all the same contingencies. Just say with the following contingencies approved by the council. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
with the following contingencies approved by the
As approved
council.
by the council. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like that better. Do we have a second?
Summers will second.
Great. Any discussion? I had a question about the last one, and that is just the way it's worded. So it sounds descriptive rather than proscriptive that they must have that. Is the intention that the project is going to include solar EV charging infrastructure and bike parking?
Do you remember when you did? So this was from the previous staff report, or actually, no, that came from, was that added by the council at the time? I can't remember where that was added. I just took it from the council minutes.
I don't know where it came up, but it's different than all the other ones.
As, you mean the way it's phrased?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And I don't want to impose something on the developer if that was not the plan. unless that was the intention.
I think it might have been included because we had conceptually approved a TIF incentive for this project. And I believe that the TIF covered extraordinary costs for sure related to solar and EV charging. I don't recall any incentive applied to bike parking. However, this project is within TIF District 3 and it is nearing the end of its life. And so it's unlikely that this project will be able to receive TIF support because they would need to have a project that is substantially completed by September of 2025, which is highly unlikely at this point. So I've communicated that with Steve Doran with Galway Properties, and I know we had some questions back and forth, but it's unlikely that we'll be able to provide TIF for this project. So I don't know that we'd be able to require solar. The EV charging infrastructure and bike parking, however, those are required under the city's new zoning ordinance. So I would think that we could require those as part of the PDD.
Okay. So perhaps we need a motion to amend the fifth contingency.
And I'll number them instead of letters. So, thank you.
Thank you. The fifth contingency to take out the reference to solar.
And to
And to
require the EV charging and bike parking per our current zoning standards. Does that seem appropriate?
Sure. Do you want to propose an amendment to your?
Yeah, I'll propose an amendment to condition number 5 that the project will include EV charging infrastructure and bike parking as required under the MUU zoning district in the current zoning code.
It's not even tied to the MUU district. It's just, I mean, don't need to necessarily say that.
I think it gives some context to why.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's related just to the land use, not to the district. That's why, that's the only reason I'm pointing it out. The EV charging and bike parking is related strictly to land use categories, not to zoning districts.
All right. So since we don't have a second, I will propose an amendment to number 5. My motion is to amend number 5 to include EV charging infrastructure and bike parking as required in the current zoning code.
Thank you.
I will second that.
Thank you. All right. So any discussion of the motion to amend contingency number 5? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting that change to contingency number 5, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Now we'll move on to, were there any other comments or questions about the amended motion now? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the amended motion that's showing on the screen with the change to contingency number 5 to read, to include EV charging infrastructure and bike parking as required in the current zoning code, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Okay, let me just make some notes. All right.
See you in 2 weeks.
No. Okay, moving on to number 2, the general development plan amendment for Conservancy Bend residences at 2431 through 2439 Parmenter Street and 2420 through 2446 Clark Street. Mark, can you give us an update?
Sure. For this one also, I prepared, I evaluated the criteria for approval and prepared some notes that I handed out to you here right before the meeting. And Daphne has them on the screen. I guess what I wanted to start with was saying that well, actually, I do want to walk through these. Let's do that. The first one is the PUD project consistent with the overall purpose and intent of this chapter. And what I want to emphasize here is that the city was the previous owner of the property. We selected the original development concept with the intent to provide flexibility in types of uses, lot area, yard requirements as afforded by PUD zoning. So I felt that this was consistent with the overall purpose and intent of the chapter. Number two is the proposed PUD consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and other area plans. And looking at the various strategies and actions in the comp plan, it does increase the density and number of housing units on an infill site. But if approved, it would no longer promote home ownership opportunities, which is housing strategy number 5. You'll recall that there are 14 townhomes on the site, in 2 buildings. I'm sorry, there were 14 townhomes proposed, in 2 buildings that are being now proposed to be replaced with the apartment building. So that would be potentially the loss of some missing middle housing types, which is defined in the comp plan as being scaled between single-family detached houses and large apartment buildings. Number 3 is the PUD project maintained desired relationships between land use densities and intensities and impacts in the environs. And I felt that there was no substantive change in how the project interacts with surrounding land uses. But as noted by our engineers, there are some important linkages for pedestrian circulation within the site that we need to make sure are there. Potential that might be severing some of those. 4th deals with public infrastructure, and what I indicated there was that it's sufficient to serve the site, whether it's developed in the original configuration approved by the city or as the second apartment building as now proposed. But there are complexities, as noted by engineers, with how we deal with the existing parcel boundaries and utility ownership that will need to be addressed. And there's no reason those can't be addressed. Number 5 is the proposed PUD project. Does it incorporate appropriate and adequate buffers and transitions between areas of different land uses, development intensities? So I felt there was no substantive change with how this interacts with surrounding land uses. 6th criterion is the proposed project. How does it detract from areas of natural beauty? Assuming that the building height is comparable to the original T2 building, and that is something I was hoping Mr. Buns could address. It's looking like a little. I felt that it would not substantively alter the linear conservancy or creek corridor to the north of the property. It does reduce building setbacks by about 3 feet, but that's not going to be perceptible to most people. 7th criterion, the proposed architecture and character of the PUD project is compatible with adjacent development. It very nicely would mimic the existing building that T-Wall Enterprises has built to the south, as well as elements of the townhomes that were built to the west. Number 8, will the project can positively contribute to and not detract from physical appearance and functional arrangement development in the area? What I noted here is that the amendment would essentially consolidate buildings T2 and T3. T2 is the building to the north, the 9-unit building, and T3 is a 5-unit along Clark Street on the east. It would consolidate them into one, and then the underground garage entrance was result in a wall that is approximately where building T3 was to be constructed. Sorry, that's a typo. This consolidation is detrimental to within site circulation unless a pedestrian walkway is provided along the south side of the building to traverse the entrance. The new site plan would maintain existing public access to the creek corridor conservancy on the west and east ends of the property, which is a good thing. Number 9, does this produce significant benefits in terms of environmental design, significant alternative approaches to addressing development performance that relate to and more than compensate for any requested exceptions? This is where I went into some detail. The setbacks, as I mentioned earlier, will be reduced somewhat, less than comparable zoning classifications, whether it's multifamily low density or medium density, which normally require setbacks from the street of 15 to 20 feet. depending on if it's front or street side setbacks. This amendment would further reduce the setbacks by another 3 feet. And then the wall along Clark Street where the garage entrance would be basically at the setback line, at the lot line, excuse me. The impervious surface area is reasonably consistent with what was originally approved. Although it's not clear to me how that is achieved, given that the setbacks are being reduced. Off-street parking, and that was information that was given to me this afternoon by the developer about impervious surface area. So that's where those numbers are coming from. Off-street parking would comply, but barely with our minimum ordinance requirements. And that only is if there's the reallocation of 3 spaces from the phase 1 building. The last item was not directly applicable. So I guess that was my background. I had, make sure I have my other notes. In my staff report, I also had questions about uplighting and whether that complies with the new code, which wasn't clear. And that's really the main item I had left. So that's all I have to supplement my report.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'll entertain a motion, or we could discuss a little bit first if people need more information before crafting a motion. And I see Jake is here. People have questions.
I guess, this is basically the same proposal we saw not too long ago, and we had concerns about it then, which we addressed with the developer. I don't see any changes to that. And I also don't know what happened at the council. Did the council see this after that?
No, we
Okay.
did not.
If we are, I want to make sure that we're clear in that we want to support housing. And certainly this is an infill site, and I definitely want to see get developed. So I want that to be clear, but it's not clear to me that the PUD amendment for number 9, meets the requirements. How does this produce significant benefits in terms of design and significant alternative approaches to addressing development performance that relate to and more than compensate for any requested exceptions to the base standard, of any standard regulation of this chapter? So that's where I am struggling a bit with it. I brought up before that I felt like the Clark Street setback was extremely tight, and that would like to see a larger setback there. Has there been any discussion, Mark, of just rezoning this to a traditional zoning district? Why are we going to a PUD now? I understand why it was originally zoned PUD. We had a package that was put together that made sense. Does it, if we're going to make a significant change to the proposal, is it just as appropriate to look at it as rezoning it to a standard district?
The biggest challenge there is the setbacks for the multifamily low and medium. The impervious area is also, I think that was 75% under, but it's 70% under MRL, and under MRM it's 75%, and I think they're at, what did I say, 80? I can't remember what I said now. 83.
83.
85.3 is what I calculated. Thank you. So we wouldn't have a traditional zoning classification. And the other problem is how the lot is configured. I mean, that's really the biggest issue. If you look at the original site and the way they've configured the lots, there's different parcels now for each of the townhomes, and those will have to be consolidated into probably with the replat. Would the lot itself comply with our frontage? And, I think all that would probably comply. But I'm not sure that depending on how the lot's configured, I don't think it could be done in a way that would comply with setback regulations. And especially that wall, that garage entrance on the southeast side of the building, it would basically mimic the building, the existing, what you see to the south to serve the current, the first building that went up.
Mhm.
And that, it works fine from what I can tell. I'm not aware of any issues, but it does create a little wall at the sidewalk, which isn't, it's not a building per se. It's a wall.
Although the building itself is still
Right.
fairly
Right.
tight
Right.
on, so that's my concern, and I'd be happy to, just allow other people to talk about how their thoughts are on it.
Commissioners?
The sticking point for me is the bullet point in number 2, the housing strategy number 5. I'm a very strong advocate of home ownership. And, I keep looking at what the market is in the city, and it's insane. The number of houses that are for sale in the city are very, very, there's always a low volume on the market, but there's nothing like this for people to buy in the city. And I know that, I read what the letter that was sent back in November about the struggles of selling the current townhouses. Those are built in much different, economic conditions in terms of COVID and building price, construction costs and everything. We're 4 years past that at this point. I'm not sure if construction costs have come down any or material costs has come down any. But, there's another developer who's developing townhouses and has them listed for sale right now. They're not constructed yet, but I can go into Zillow and see that they're, selling for around $350,000 or so for about a 1,500 square foot townhouse. And I think that, townhouses, 2-3 bedroom townhouses can actually accommodate a family. I laughed I kind of internally laughed when I saw the multifamily, but yet they're being sold as studios and 1 bedrooms.
Mhm.
How do you have a family in a studio 1 bedroom apartment? And I think about opportunities for families to move into our community. And right now there aren't a whole lot of those opportunities. One of those opportunities, 2 of them are being built, currently constructed on the north side, but we have not seen a lot of ownership opportunities in the infill in our city. And I feel like we're missing a great opportunity to kind of build that missing middle housing if we say, let's switch this off to a renter only. And I think that, sometimes comprehensive plans can, goals in them can kind of compete with each other a little bit. If we focus on housing strategy number 5 with promoting home ownership, it kind of, we're reducing the number of units that are going to be built for others. But, tackling the housing shortage is a multi-pronged approach. We have to take a large approach. And I think that apartments is not the only approach we should be taking. This is something that we desperately need in our community and just regionally as well. And I think that we'd be missing out on a great opportunity to promote home ownership if we change this.
Thank you.
So I 100% agree with everything Commissioner Adams said. I think that the first time this came before us about 2 months ago or so, maybe 3
Last
months
fall.
now. Last fall. A while back. I don't think any one of us was in favor of it at that point in time. I will say I stare at this property often as my office is right across the creek and my office window looks directly at the area we're considering. And I think after the housing presentation, in my opinion, I don't consider this unfortunately to be middle housing, knowing what those original townhomes were posted for, knowing that they're 2 bedrooms. Jake came up and I think we had a good discussion as far as, the restrictions and being able to change floor plans and width of them and just the physical restrictions of the site that wouldn't be able to allow more affordable townhomes. Yes, construction materials have gone down, but interest rates have gone up. So it doesn't greatly change the financial picture unfortunately. So again, wholeheartedly agree with everything Commissioner Adams said. I would really like to see more owner occupied housing, but we still have a great housing shortage, and therefore I think that there is an opportunity to consider here.
And to weigh in some more on what Aaron had to say, I agree that we have to balance the needs. I would much rather see townhouse style, some missing middle housing here. That was what was originally promoted as part of the project. I think it would have been a great way to develop it. But it's apparent to me that this particular developer is not able to or interested in doing that. And I think providing more housing is important. So I can see past the requiring the missing middle, but I think we ought to still require an adequate design and adequate setbacks. That to me seems like would be totally appropriate.
Well, Commissioner Harp, did you want to add anything?
I guess the way I was looking at this the last time we talked about it was that the developer, as I understood it, the developer could essentially sell off this piece of property and then another developer could come in and put a multifamily apartment building on this piece of property. I think that's what I heard from the discussion that we had at that point. I'm assuming that has not really changed, if I understood that right.
It would have to
Abby?
be built in compliance with the SIP. So they would have, if they wanted to do something different than what's approved, they'd have to go through the same process.
I guess that, with that in mind, I'm essentially, I understand the history and the need for the home ownership and fully support all that as well. But I'm kind of on the fence on this one, but I think I could see my way clear to vote for it.
Thank you. Well, I agree with all the comments about how we saw this a while ago, not too long ago, and it doesn't seem like it has changed to reflect the concerns that were brought up at that meeting. I too struggle with this because on the one hand, I have nothing against apartments. I do have something against commitments not being followed through on. I recognize market conditions may have changed, but I can't help but wonder, why aren't these townhomes selling? What's wrong with them? Is it the construction or their price? It just seems, it's unfathomable that given the housing crunch that we have, people aren't interested in buying townhomes. I would prefer to see smaller, more affordable townhomes built in the phase two. I find it appealing that there's a reference to affordable rental housing, and then there is an indication that affordable isn't just, a normal adjective in this case, that it is consistent with the 80%, I can't find the page, but that the rent would be affordable by somebody, there it is, page 48. The county median income rent limit. On the other hand, we had a commitment to have townhouses built, so I'm not sure I have faith that the final outcome would be apartments at this rate, because we haven't gotten, the commitments haven't been followed through on for selling the townhomes and then also building more townhomes. So I struggle with this. Is there any way, Mark or Abby, that we could require something of the developer if we decide to allow apartments to be built instead of townhouses as originally planned? Could we require that they be affordable? Could we require that there be, I think the original plan was 2-bedroom units. So could we require that at least percentage be 2 and, well, I guess I would go with 3 as well, but if the original plan was for 2-bedroom units, why not ask for that here? And then my last question is about the setbacks and the height. Why not, is there a way to reconfigure the building so that it is 4 stories like its partner, but complies with the setbacks in our zoning code for that Commissioner Bruce was talking about? Because I looked, it doesn't seem like the 3-story height is to preserve a view of the conservancy for anybody in the southern building. But yes, Jake, please.
To address the last point, the 4 stories, we've run into a bit of a parking pinch on that one. Just more density and, unless we went down another story, a second deck of parking, we're just, it's already tight. I think the ratio is like right around 1 or just below 1. So it's, yeah, just tight.
To that point, this is on a transit corridor, and we do have a provision in the new zoning code that allows developers to request a reduction in the minimum parking requirements.
I think, and Mark, we're within the minimum parking requirements with this proposal, right?
If you reallocate the 3 spaces from the other
Yeah,
building.
But I'm just saying, if you needed to,
yeah.
I
Yes.
think this commission might look favorable because of where it is near a transit corridor. That's and within walking distance to potential employers and services.
Yeah, and to your point before, we're happy to look into adding 2 bedrooms and moving it to, I'm a little reluctant to looking at the 4 stories, but we can look into it and just see how it works with our, not only our financial analysis, but the plan on paper and everything. So I'm happy to look into that.
Thoughts from,
I just I don't want to make any promises or
Sure.
have it thrown in there before I can review it and see if it works.
good. And Mark and Abby, what assurance can we make sure the city has that these units, if they're apartments, would be affordable?
I'll jump in and try to answer that. So I think what you're asking is not only would the units be affordable and meet the Wisconsin standard multifamily tax subsidy project income limits chart, but also would they be income restricted? I'm assuming that you would want both. The WIDA chart that I just mentioned, they don't have affordable rents for 80%. Their maximum rent limits go up to 60%. And the reason is because 80% for rental housing is typically right around where the market is. And so for most affordable and income restricted development projects, the max is going to be 60%. I would not recommend moving forward with trying to do an income restriction for 80% for a couple of reasons. One is that the reporting and compliance aspect is challenging for our staff to administer. So we do the compliance ourselves in-house. And another reason is that the city would not really have any recourse if the developer decided not to go in that way, because they wouldn't have any other subsidies attached where there would be a drawback method. So if they decided not to be within compliance, what would the penalty be? And then the third reason is just that what I've found working with developers is that some specialize in affordable housing and they understand the requirements really well. Or they do a little bit of both. So they do affordable and income restricted, but they also do market rate. In this case, T-Wall is a developer that does strictly market rate housing. And I've never heard any indication that you're broaching the affordable market. And so I think it would probably be a pretty big.
It'd be a big jump for us.
Yeah.
You're spot on. And I think I mentioned in my cover letter, but this would be us trying to create affordable housing. We're not seeking any WIDA tax credits or anything. We did talk about, I know that Terrence and I were talking, Middleton's a net importer of jobs. We'd be happy to open these units up to, give Middleton residents or people who work in Middleton the first crack at renting these units. If we were able to police that some way, but policing or, the accounting, the property management that goes into the actual WIDA tax credits, the affordable housing stuff is more than we have the ability to do.
So you might be able to pre-advertise, which is what we've done with a couple of other projects where like the early advertisement for units opening up would be targeted to the Middleton,
Yeah.
current Middleton residents, but I don't think the fair housing law would allow you to side by side screen applicants based on where they live.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at anything like that yet, but you can understand our intent, so, yeah.
On that last point about some developers do affordable housing question, just thinking all possibilities. What about keeping this land undeveloped until the city is ready to invest in affordable condos, which is in our housing plan, after TID 3 closes? This is TID 3, right?
Well, with the affordable housing extension.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You
It can
can
go
use it
anywhere.
anywhere.
Yep.
This
That's what I
is
meant.
TID 5.
Yep, that's what
But
I
yes, you
meant.
could still use it.
Okay, so I mean, because Commissioner Hart mentioned the developer could sell the property, could the city be the one to develop it?
If the developer were a willing seller, certainly.
Other thoughts?
Jake, did you explore other options since the October meeting?
Yes, not extremely deep dives, but the townhomes, I think it's a somewhat of a battle scar, the first 5 townhomes, building those, and we got hit hard with COVID starting, construction prices skyrocketed. We halted construction on these for 3 months during the COVID shutdowns because we couldn't, workers weren't showing up. So with the costs being so far out of control, hence the cost of these units rising to a point that, people weren't interested in buying them. Interest rates now up, construction prices higher than they were back then, with the exception of maybe some materials like lumber's come back down. We're just a little bit reluctant to fully explore that concept. Hence us coming back with this concept again with you guys. Yeah.
All right, members, what's your preference?
It sounds to me like there's multiple concerns here that still need to be addressed if this project's going to move forward. So I would make a motion to refer this to a future plan commission meeting. Give the applicant some time to consider the proposal and bring it back.
Okay, we have a motion.
To defer this to a future meeting to give applicant time to reconsider proposal.
Yes.
And bring it back.
Is there any way we can make a motion that with contingencies that would alleviate those concerns, or are you saying?
Well, I don't know how to do that, honestly, because there's multiple concerns, right? There's one that has to do with affordability. There's another that has to do with missing mental housing. And then there's mine regarding setbacks and, appropriate site design. And I think if another proposal came back, we'd be able to weigh those things together. And so it's hard, if it was totally an affordable project, well, we would look at it maybe as being, some offsets there.
Mhm.
So I don't know how to put the contingencies together.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if we could,
I think she was going to make a difference.
based on setbacks and pervious surface
Oh, I see.
ratios, but.
Yeah. Well, Commissioner Summers, please take a
I'll
crack.
take a stab at it.
Commissioner Summers, do you want to make a different motion or second? Because we don't have a second yet for,
Well, do we want to give the applicant
The-
our points of what needs to be changed then for them to come back? So we don't keep circling around the
Yeah.
same conversation, I think would
It
be.
would be
I
helpful.
I agree.
okay.
I agree.
So would you like to make a different motion that includes what they're not really contingencies, but the specific things to reconsider and work into the proposal? It's,
Yeah.
if,
I was
So
just wondering
far,
if
yeah,
there's
so
a
far.
pathway forward with the concerns, but
Sorry, I
take a
just
stab at
don't know
it.
what to track here.
well, in the interest of moving this forward, I will second Commissioner Bruce's motion, and then we can get an amendment to specifically delineate the things that we're interested in having incorporated into a proposal. Okay. Discussion of things to incorporate. It sounds like we had,
Verifying the impervious surface ratios. Mark said he needed to check on that. Just being so close to the creek there, that's. Then Randy,
I had,
Concerns were
I had
setbacks.
concerns about meeting standard number 9 in providing, benefits, significant benefits above the base zoning standards. So I would be, satisfied or happy if we could get close to the base zoning standards or have some reasons for, giving variances to that. And that would include, surface ratios and setbacks.
Okay.
And Mark, I don't know that we are necessarily, I guess, are we restricted to the MRL or MRM? Could we look at it as a MRH or a?
Well, sure. I guess if you think the density is comparable to MRH, reasonably comparable. But I think of MRH as being more, I think that's up to 5 stories. Whereas, 3 stories for low, 4 stories for medium, and then
I
5
see.
stories for.
I see.
But it doesn't have to, I mean, that's just the maximum. It doesn't have to, I mean, there's some flexibility there, I guess.
I guess what I'm saying is, if we could get close to setbacks that were comparable to our base zoning, that would make me more comfortable with the proposal.
Mhm.
And that's not even giving us benefits above the base zoning. It's just getting us to
Getting it
that.
to-
Yeah.
what about incorporating 2-bedroom units?
I think that was another ask since that was the original intent. I don't know. Randy and Chris will speak better to this. I don't know that we can really set a certain number of 2-bedroom units because they're gonna have to rearrange some stuff and see what's even feasible, but if we could get a few 2 bedrooms, I think that would be great to serve the
How,
Middleton.
how many
families.
2-bedrooms were originally promised or included?
14 townhome
14.
units, and I believe those all were 2 bedrooms, correct me if I'm wrong.
I would think,
There was only 5 of them were the ones facing perimeter.
There were 5 facing perimeter, 9 facing the north, the Conservancy, and 5 facing Clark Street.
So
Oh, so there are 14 that are, I think 14 sounds like.
14 left or 19 total
Okay.
in the original approved plan.
Yeah,
So I personally, I wouldn't necessarily require the 14 2-bedrooms, but to get something that got us closer to that
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, I don't
know
want
how
just
many that
like
means.
3,
I don't know
that
what that means.
we
But-
did it.
I do know that the economics of the projects are gonna be tough no matter what.
Yeah.
And they're gonna want these small units that they've got are producing the highest rent per square foot, which helps the economics, right? So as we require the
Mhm.
larger units, it's gonna make it more difficult for them. So I don't know what to say about that.
Okay. We can just leave it unspecified. Mark, do you have these to read off to us if someone wants to make an amendment? To
So
add
the
this?
motion was to defer this to a future meeting to give the applicant time to reconsider the proposal. That's how I captured the motion. But then you said
And
discussion,
bring it back
sorry,
and bring it back. That's what Commissioner Bruce said.
to
To reconsider the proposal and bring it back.
okay.
I mean, I think you're thinking, but it says bring it to a future meeting and I'm just
Okay,
telling
sorry.
you what, what was said. And I think it's important to add that because it's not just like, go think about what you've done. And then we'll talk. It's reconsider the proposal and bring it back to us.
Yeah. I mean, I do want to see a proposal done on this.
Yeah.
yeah,
I want to see something come forward on this.
Yeah.
I just think that we need a more, a proposal that's more responsive to what the community, wants to see there.
Mhm.
understood.
And then the items that to incorporate, I had verifying impervious surface ratios. Meeting standard number 9, which, well, that had to do with impervious surface ratios. Basically having this be closer to base zoning standards is what I heard Commissioner Bruce say. And also incorporating more 2-bedroom or having at least some 2-bedroom units.
And we haven't discussed the missing middle housing. I mean, that's the other. I mean, I think Nick and Aaron both talked about, the fact that we'd really like to see missing middle housing here rather than the apartment building. And the community's been pretty vocal about this as well.
Right. And that is not at all to say that we do not want apartments.
Mhm.
Apartments are necessary. It's just that in this particular project, we were counting on having some homeownership opportunities. And it would be, I think, important to get those, whether it's condos and I know condos are problematic, but is there a way to at least, we've talked about other apartment buildings that perhaps in the future could be converted to condos. I mean, is there some way to consider that?
I think that's an interesting idea, to look at this as a project that could be built to condominium standards, have unit sizes that would be appropriate for future conversion. And if it was rented now and then sold later, market was more, when financing requirements weren't onerous.
Mhm.
I'm just displaying on the screen from the comprehensive plan what we mean when we say missing middle.
Mhm.
Okay, so does somebody want to move that we add those 3 items? Actually, I guess it's 4 because you had I was going to lump surface ratios and setbacks together,
Mhm.
as Commissioner Bruce observed, into meeting standard number 9. And then incorporating 2-bedroom units consistent with the original plan or something to that effect, to indicate why we're asking for 2-bedroom units, and then constructed for possible future conversion to condominiums. Or so constructed so as to facilitate possible future conversion. I don't know how to phrase that.
I said to enable future conversion, potential future conversion to condo units. Something like that. And that's how the original townhomes were intended to be built. So
Mhm. Okay. You don't have those, can we see them on the screen? You're typing or no?
it's not easy to do.
Right.
So basically.
That sounded like a no.
Things to incorporate meetings to this impervious surface ratios and setbacks was the first bullet. The second one is incorporating at least some 2-bedroom units based on the rationale that was originally approved. And the third is to encourage the applicant to build the project in a way that enables potential future conversion to condo units.
Sound good? Commissioner Bruce, would you like to make that motion?
You want me, I can make that motion, do we even need more?
It's an amendment to
Amendment?
the original motion to add the specificity.
So I'll amend my motion to add the specifics as Mark just outlined or repeated back to us.
Okay,
I will second that.
all right. So we have a motion and a second on an amendment. Any discussion of the added language? Hearing none, all those in favor of adding the specific 3 items that Mark has outlined for us to the original motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Now going back to the motion as amended, to refer this to a future plan commission meeting to give the applicant some time to reconsider the proposal as reflected in our amendment and bring it back to us. Any discussion of that?
Just a point of information that the new proposal, if they make the revisions that, or even some of the revisions that you're describing, it's likely going to require a new public hearing. But that would be something that the city staff could now administratively set once we receive the application.
Good to know. Thank you for that.
Would that be like you discussed earlier, where that's on a different meeting date than the actual discussion?
It depends on what happens tomorrow.
Okay.
It could be.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, so all those in favor of the amended motion to refer this to a future plan commission meeting to give the applicant some time to reconsider the proposal and bring it back, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 3, extraterritorial certified survey map for the Khrushchev property, I guess, at 6285 County Highway K in the town of Westport. Staff, do you have an update or intro for us?
I don't have any update beyond the staff recommendation.
Okay, so the staff recommendation, if we can see that on the screen, is to approve the extraterritorial CSM for the 2 lots at 6285 County Highway K, Town of Westport, contingent on the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee and Common Council approving the rezoning of the 2 parcels that would be created by the CSM. Is it 2 parcels or 1?
2.
2, okay. And contingent on the following restrictions added to the CSM. 1, no future land division unless the land is being sold to Dane County for conservation purposes. And 2, no buildings and no human habitation on the area showing on the rezone map as lot 1. What's with that? May I ask?
That was something Westport staff requested.
Okay. And lot one is the one to the right. correct?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll just
okay.
say instead of large parcel, I'll say on lot
Yeah.
one.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion? Or move approval? of the CSM?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Adams will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the extraterritorial CSM for the two lots at 6285 County Highway K, Town of Westport, contingent on the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee and Common Council approving the rezoning of the two parcels that would be created by this CSM, and contingent on the following restrictions added to the CSM. 1, no future land division unless the land is being sold to Dane County for conservation purposes. And 2, no buildings and no human habitation on the area showing on the rezone map as lot 1. Signify by saying aye. Aye. What?
No. No, I just liked how you put that all in one sentence and then said signify.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Okay, moving on to the 5-year street improvement plan. This comes to us from the Public Works Committee, and the staff recommendation is to give feedback and then also come up with a recommendation to the Common Council. And this, okay, this map is not the map, right? This is the current one. We
This
haven't,
is proposed. I
however,
believe.
High Road is not showing as in the plan. And I know High Road is in the plan.
Let me just find the email that I got from Sean.
We have a GIS site where that I think is more up to date.
Okay.
Either that or High Road was taken off. Then we're gonna have a discussion.
Yeah, so his email just says the version that's on the website.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think he means the GIS.
I see. My apologies. We can pull that up here.
I think I have it.
You got it? Okay.
Is it this one?
Yep, and they're in red. That red vertical line is High Road. Okay. I really like this website that's available now for people. I think it's maybe not as easy to take in as the paper or the PDF map, but I think it's got all kinds of good information at the tabs up above. Okay, so any feedback from commissioners?
What's the reasoning that Century Avenue went from 2026 to 2029? That's a road that needed fixed like yesterday. And I don't know if we can wait like 3 more years,
In it Dane County, that's.
or is it
Well-
because of the county?
I think it is.
Well, okay, so from what I understand, and Mark, maybe you remember this better than I do, but the Century Avenue Bridge construction is still planned for 27?
Actually, Abby might, yeah, that is.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember. the
that's
exact-
my understanding.
This is the bridge by Branch, right?
Yes.
Yes, so
Okay.
that is still on track for 2027. And I think 26, did you say it was originally?
On the one that was in our packet, it was listed as yellow.
Okay.
It was colored yellow.
And I think the idea was to put that off until after the bridge construction is done and to fit in all the other priorities, including High Road, which is in dire need of work. That's why Century Avenue got postponed until 2029. Now, that's assuming that council sticks with the $4 million. It's not a written cap anywhere, but that has always been the target. But given inflation and our needs, there's always a possibility that council will increase that borrowing amount.
And then with Century Avenue, like whenever it gets redone, is the idea also to replace some of the water mains and stuff? Because when you go east of Allen, their water main, last year there were 4 water main breaks. There was one just 2 weeks ago. And it seems like that corridor between Allen and Highland, there are water main breaks every couple months. And I know part of the reconstruction of Dewey Court this summer is to help alleviate some of those, but Century's torn up quite a bit due to continuous water main breaks. So I'm hoping that when Century gets done, that that's also addressed, because it's becoming kind of for those of us that live in that part of the town, we have no other way to go, right? I mean, it's either that, deal with that construction, or you go all the way up to like come down Highway Q. So, and that, think about all the traffic that uses that road on a daily basis from Wanakee. So it's kind of I think that those of us on that side of town are kind of getting a little bit peeved with the constant lane closures. And I think we can suffer a summer or so, when it finally gets reconstructed, just so we can avoid that.
Well, those are really good points, Commissioner Adams. And just looking at the map, I'm wondering why the entirety of Century is scheduled to be done in 1 year. That seems like a big, ambitious project, and I wonder why it isn't split up into 2, doing east and west.
Why, when they're working on the bridge, why can't they take advantage of that closure when the bridge is closed to do some other work? I don't know.
All right, well, that's good feedback to, I guess, send back to Public Works.
I will say that this map is interactive, and Daphne can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I click on Century Avenue, it's listed as resurfacing, not reconstruction, which makes me think that it might not include utilities. And then I think that there should also be a PACER rating that we can see for Century Avenue. Just trying to. Where did I see that?
What is the reconstruction table at the top show?
Oh, gosh. So yeah, you can see the street names listed on the left. And if you scroll down, we can see if any of those include Century.
No.
But we can discuss with Public Works. My guess is that this is more dictated by the county, because it's a county road, but we'll discuss this with Public Works and we can get back to you.
Is it a county road all the way out to Parmenter?
Yes.
And who dictates the design of the road? Is it the county or the?
It's heavily influenced by the county. If there are non-standard features to a county highway, then that involves the city paying more for it. That's their policy. But in this case, there already is sidewalk along both sides of Century. I think the entire length, from what I can remember.
The biggest
And-
change that we're looking at for Century is the road diet.
And that's what I was just gonna say.
Mhm.
So we have proposed the idea of a road diet west of Branch Street in particular. And that's something the county is probably not too keen on. They're rebuilding, they're designing the bridge over over the creek at Stamhouse. They're designing that to be a 4-lane road, just like it is now. But from a ped bike standpoint, it certainly would be nice to get some more room for those modes of transportation.
And
This is
Mark,
also a transit corridor, so we obviously want to make sure we also facilitate efficient movement of buses.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say that what the county had told us is not that they would oppose it, but that they would want a traffic study done
Right.
before they would consider it. And we did apply for a grant through the help me out, Daphne.
I don't even remember.
We didn't
anymore.
receive funding,
Yeah.
but we applied for a planning grant to try to do that study, and we weren't able to get funding, but we thought that if we applied again, we might have more success getting funding to do that study. So sometimes second times you're more successful on those grant
I
applications.
had heard some talk about taking a Century and putting on the road diet, which I would be very supportive of,
Mhm.
you know, for that western section. So hopefully we'll be successful or have some success with the county.
And there is also an intersection study underway or will be underway shortly with the county for the Century and Allen intersection. Trying to make improvements because crossing that intersection on foot is
Or
a
on
huge,
bike.
huge challenge. Or on bike, yeah.
I would definitely bike to the gym more often if I didn't have to go through that intersection.
See, I have a feeling like there's a lot of bike traffic on the south side of Century, you know, on the sidewalk as opposed to the north side where the bike path actually is. And I often wonder how much of it is because of how much of a pain it is to cross.
Mhm.
That's
that
precisely
intersection.
why. I've talked to bicyclists who specifically take the sidewalk because
I am one
they
of
can't
those.
cross. And, but then you have to cross up at Highland Way, for example, and then with the signals being out for a few days like they were, that was virtually impossible to cross there. About it. So we had a complaint about that, a vociferous complaint, I would say. I just did a bike trip around Lake Monona this weekend, and an intersection I would encourage you all to look at sometime is John Nolan Drive, where it comes into Williamson Street by the bike shop. The way that was rebuilt with separate alignments for bike path crossing and pedestrian crossing using green paint for the bike path and then a separate quarter for peds. I loved how that got redone, and that's I immediately thought of Century and Allen I hope we get a designer who can do this sort of thing there.
That would be good.
So
Other feedback on this map?
I don't know how much I can specify this, but looking at Franklin Avenue in my neighborhood there for 2025, when they redid, I always get Mayflower and Maywood,
Maywood.
but when they did, because that was what, 3 years ago now? When you bid it out, if there's any way for both Park Lawn and Franklin that you can get them or even up there down Maywood more. They started the day before school started and they had no OSHA required or engineering got a call from me because you had dozens of stranded crying kids who had no way across
Oh,
their main route to Sauk Trail. You got kids coming from the other way to Cromery. If there's any way you could, one, make sure they have the proper OSHA approved walkways that go across the street for kids, but two, encourage them to start right as the school year ends so that it minimizes those poor children trying to make their way to
Wow.
school. Took a van full of Girl Scouts
Mhm.
around on, you know, because their only alternative route was to go around on Century or on University Avenue, which you don't want elementary kids. So,
our comp plan has talked about Franklin as being a key bicycle route as well. So from a design standpoint, we'll want to make sure that we influence that.
Yes, absolutely.
Can we see the Greenway Boulevard area, specifically where this new development is going in? Because I wondered about that intersection. Has anybody, that's a public works question. The intersection of Greenway and John Q. Hammonds, how is that for pedestrians? It seems not friendly. So maybe that's something for the Public Works Committee to consider in the future.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the widest intersection in the city from the standpoint that
It
South
looks-
Lake, it's really, really wide.
It looks like it. And it doesn't look like there's a very big island for pedestrians to get stranded in the middle.
Yeah, we're getting a lot more housing
Mhm.
south of Greenway that needs to get to the north side of Greenway. That's a very good comment.
Okay, any other thoughts? So for so the feedback to staff we've gotten, do we want to pass this on to Common Council? Or do we want Public Works to?
Pedback Transit is going to take it up at their next meeting.
Okay.
This
and
was
that-
referred by the public, I'm sorry, this is your item, Abby, but this was referred by the Public Works Committee for feedback from the Plan Commission and the Pedback Transit Committee.
Okay, can we share, maybe we need a motion to share our feedback with Ped Bike and Transit since they'll see it next? And that meeting is after the council meeting.
Right.
We won't be putting this item on the next council meeting because Pet Bike Transit won't meet until 6/8, I think it is.
Okay,
And then it would go to council prior to the budget process.
6:13.
6/13, thank you.
And I don't know if you need a motion so much other than we
Yeah.
have this feedback. It's up to you.
yeah, I'm thinking we don't need a motion for council consideration. Council's going to get it.
I mean, the feedback I heard, and we'll listen to the recording too, but a lot of discussion about Century Avenue and timing and
Water mains.
water mains, yeah. Franklin, a concern there with the school year. The Allen Century intersection was also mentioned. And then the John Q. Hammond's Greenway intersection. Maybe, is that something that is a concern for pedestrians and bicyclists? Those are my main takeaways.
I would add for High Road there too, because that's right where North Side is.
For the school comment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does staff have any updates on the Parmenter Road right away?
We have had to delay that project because there are a couple of property owners that we're still trying to acquire right away from. So I don't think we have any other further update at this time, but that project is not happening this year. At the earliest, it would be in 2025.
Right. But I was just thinking about, that's a road that's really in bad shape.
Well, not only that, but we have a $1 million grant that Daphne secured for the city to pay the cost, a part of the cost for reconstructing that road. And I believe that it was on a timeline of either 3 or 5 years, but I think that 2025 is getting to the tail end of when we can use that funding. And I know Sean Stowski, our Public Works Director, is tracking that really closely. But he was potentially going to be looking at some alternate design proposals that the city could consider if we weren't able to secure the right of way that we need from the couple of property owners.
I thought we had even weighed in on that before, hadn't we?
Yeah, you may have. I can't remember if we talked about this at a different meeting or if it was here, but yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If there are no further comments on the 5-year street improvement plan, then we'll move on to the last item on our agenda, which is the town of Westport. I'm missing whatever it is. What's the actual name of this agenda item? There it is, extraterritorial certified survey map for Yahara Materials at 6139 County Highway K, Town of Westport. That's the only part of the copy.
Yeah, we put this at the end because Commissioner Summers is abstaining on this
Okay.
matter. So
Thank you.
there's
She has
4 of you still present.
note that she has left the
Yep.
room.
So similar to the other one, this is in our extraterritorial area with the town of Westport. This one, Westport staff did not need identify any specific contingencies other than the zoning contingency. So I don't have any other comments at this point.
And why, is it unusual for us to see the CSM before the zoning takes place or?
Well, the zoning was supposed to take place at the last council meeting, but we didn't, there wasn't a quorum, although there's some discussion about that. Alder Hanero made a good point. So, no, what's that?
I wasn't at the meeting.
Yeah, no,
For the record, when there is an abstention, that does not change the quorum. we still have that, although she has left the room in this case, so that I guess could make a difference, but abstentions don't necessarily affect the quorum.
Well, and that was my thought later on when you said that, because I think the best practice for abstentions is when you do have a direct interest that you should leave the room and not participate.
Mhm.
In that case, she also had left. She was not, well, she was via Zoom. We had
Okay.
storms that night. And so we gave the option to participate via Zoom. So it's a good observation, but I'm not sure that would have worked in that case. At any rate, there was no action taken, and the joint zoning committee is going to have to meet here before next Tuesday if it's going to be on the council agenda next Tuesday.
I'll make a motion to approve the extraterritorial CSM contingent on the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee and Common Council approving the rezoning of the 2 parcels that would be created by this CSM.
Adams will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the extraterritorial CSM contingent on the Middleton Westport Joint Zoning Committee and Common Council approving the rezoning of the 2 parcels that would be created by this CSM, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. We've reached the end of our agenda, and so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.